Hi, welcome to Pixarama. I'm JimZip. Thank you for coming along for the ride today. Today we're going to tackle some animation. We're going to tackle a character run cycle, because a lot of people have been requesting that we do more character-based stuff on the show. Thank you for the comments, by the way. And if ever you want to see something, comment down below and let me know. So let's do it. Let's tackle a little pixel character's run cycle.
With the and the fucking with the things and the summer with the fire and the willow. Whoa!
So the first thing we're going to do is find ourselves a good reference, well, in this case a video. I found one here. It's a bit strange, but it's actually very good for showing what I need to show. And this is what you can use as a cue to set up your character's run cycle. So I hit play here. We got a guy running. I've slowed down the speed. This is not my video, by the way. I'm just looking at this on YouTube right now. But you can see how this guy moves, and slowing it down a bit gives you a really, really good window into the mechanics of running in general. So let's put that away and hop into Pixel Edit. As usual, I'm using Pixel Edit for all our pixeling and animation needs. And I've set up a document already here. And as you can see here, it's 4 tiles wide and 2 tiles high, because the run cycle is going to be 8 frames long. I feel comfortable with 8 frames. I think it gives a nice sense of motion without going over the top and without keeping things too simplistic. Here's an example of another sprite that I've been working on recently. Let's get this out of the way. This guy is a little pirate, as you can see, and his run cycle looks something like this. This is 8 frames long, as you can see here. And then after I finished animating him, I added some little touches like the feather bouncing up and down, the hat bobbing. This is where 8 frames can get you, this sort of... I'm sorry, I'm just hacking up my victims in the back room. I'm kidding, we've got renovations happening at the moment. So this is a good idea of where 8 frames can get you. The smoothness of this animation. This gives you a good idea of what it looks like at 8 frames. To give you an idea of what 4 frames looks like, I will take you back to the past, back to 3 years ago when I first started doing game development myself. And this is a sprite that I was working on at the time. I wanted it to be I wanted it to look like the original Pokemon games is what I was going for here. So the sprite is tiny, around 15 by 20 pixels high. And with 4 frames, you get an animation that looks like this. So it will suit some purposes. It ended up not suiting my purpose. I ended up redesigning the sprite and going for 8 frames in the end. And you can tell the difference easily just by looking at them. So let's head back to Blork here. Blork is my little demo character. And just for kicks, let's give him an Indiana Jones hat. But let's get animating. As you can see, we've already got the first frame here. This frame probably won't stay. We'll probably change this later because this frame doesn't really fit in the scope of our animation. We don't really have a frame where the character is going to be stationary. What I'm going to do is duplicate this layer. And now what I'm going to do is set him up for the first frame of the run cycle. And to do that, again, I'm going to go back to my reference video here. It's better to start the animation with extreme positions. For example, at the full stretch of the run. Why would we do that? Because it gives you a good frame of reference for the rest of the animation. It lets you know that you're at the furthest point, the most extreme point of the animation. And from there, we're going to go back through the range of animation and end up again at the most extreme pose. So as I said, frame 1 needs to be the stretched out position. So I'm going to move his hand back up here, his other hand out the front here. I'm going to fill in what needs to be filled in. His elbow going up here. Cool, get rid of that. His torso and his back, his other arm. And what I'm going to do right off the bat here is color in the bits that are behind his body in a darker shade, because we're going to need to see that soon. So let's take his arm up. Maybe this is too far. Let's bring that in one. Cool. And now let's go for his legs. Keep in mind that in a run cycle, the arms and legs are always at opposites to each other, yeah? So let's take his back leg. Once again, I'm going to color in the back leg so we can differentiate them. So let's take the front leg here and move it to the front. And the back leg, I'm just going to delete for a minute. Push that leg back into a stretched out position. Add the foot back in. And his front leg should not be so dark because it's the front leg. Let's lift his shoe off the ground a bit to make it look like he's just lowering his foot down. Okay. Depending on your sprite, you're going to have to figure out what looks best, obviously. But this is generally the pose you're going to use for starting a run cycle here. Okay, I just made some little tweaks there. This animation is going to need a lot of tweaking, I can tell you that right up front. Let's head to the second frame now, copy and paste this guy in. Now keep in mind, you got to kind of in your head have a vision of where the motion is at, which direction things are heading. Just keep it in mind. So he's at the very end of his stretch. Now he's going to bring his arms, he's going to swing them to the front. And this action has to take 4 frames in this case. We've got an 8-frame animation, which means that by the end of the first 4 frames, he has to be halfway through. And at the end of the 8 frames, he's got to be back to the start. So somehow in these 3 frames here, we've got to swing his arms one to the front and the back one to the back, obviously, and do the same with the legs. So let's do that. Let's grab his arm. I think it should probably be about maybe here. And the back arm is going to start going back behind his torso again. The front foot has now met the ground and it's just starting to move back again. So let's bend his leg a bit and make that shoe meet the ground. And the back leg is going to start going up again. It's going to go, so the legs are going to kind of go like this. One's going to pull back along the ground, the foot that's on the floor, and the other foot's going to lift up and head to the front. Check out the feet here. This one's going to slide along the ground. This one's going to go up and around. Bang. So this foot is already starting to lift up. His knee's going to bend. I'm going to bring his shoulder down a bit. He's kind of getting mega shoulders here. Cool. So that's frame 2. Let's do frame 3. This time, this hand is going to be almost at the front. Let's take this shoulder down a bit, match up the arm. The other hand's going to be just about to come out the other side. And also this front foot is going to be coming back here now. Back to the back. We're going to start seeing that back leg peeking through here. Again, this is all going to require tweaking after the fact. Cool. Let's give a bit of an angle there, maybe. So let's see how this animation is looking now. So we can pan through the animation with the full stop and comma keys. So let's just have a look here. And he's looking quite robotic. He's not looking very smooth at all. But again, this is where tweaking comes in. Let's keep going. Let's do the last frame here. So this hand that was at the back is now stretched up into the air. The other hand is in the background and it's right back here behind his body. His arm's going to be coming out like that. This arm's going to be coming down like that. This foot is going to be right at the back here, lifting up into the air at this point too, just lifting off the ground. Cool. And this foot is now coming down, just about to hit the ground, just like this one did. And I just realized I made a boo-boo. Basically what we want is that the animation links up on the first frame of each row. So we're going to go through all the movements in the first row and end up at the opposite but original frame on the second row, and vice versa. Sorry for that. I somehow forgot that that's how it worked. So now we need to fill in an extra frame. And one thing to think about when you're animating anything is that slower movements are going to get more frames. It's just the way it is. It makes things look way better. Fast actions always get less frames. It makes things really pop. It makes things look much more realistic, and slow movements accordingly will get more frames. So what we're going to do is we have our first 3 frames here. Let's just pop back to the beginning. Doop, doop, doop. We're going to just smooth the motion a wee bit. We're going to add in an intermediate frame. So between this guy and this guy, let's put one more frame in. In fact, I can just copy him and put it here. And I'm just going to bring things back just a wee bit. So that's going to come back up a little bit. This one's going to come forward a little bit. Let's see how that looks. Where are we? We're frame 1. It looks a bit weird. Let's fix it up a bit more. And I just realized that these feet are too low. Let's bring these up 1 pixel each. So let's see how that's looking now. not great. In any case, we're not going to dwell on that for any great length of time. We know the concept now that the first frame of each row has to be the most extended position for the sprite. So I'm going to go ahead and fill in these last 3 frames. And what we can do if we want to cheat this and make it a little quicker is copy these last 3 frames here. Let's pull them down. And now we're just going to mirror everything. We're going to bring the backhand to the front and vice versa. Okay, and we're back. So I finished up those last 3 frames, and I also made a couple of tweaks to the animation in general. Just a couple of preliminary tweaks because I could see immediately that things down here in the animation editor weren't looking quite right. They're still not looking perfect, but they're looking better. As I said, this is going to take a lot of tweaking. Run cycles are really tricky to do, so you're not going to hit first time. Well, you might, but I never do. But let's continue on here. So the next thing we're going to do is make this look a bit more like the character is running. And to do that, we need something else. Not just the movements of the limbs, we need impact. Because as you run, of course, you're going to hit the ground every step, and you're going to launch yourself into the air after every step. As we can see here, the character's head does not stay on the same level. The person's head, rather, does not stay on the same level. It bounces up and down. The whole body moves up and down, actually. So we got to incorporate that into our animation as well. So the first frame and this frame we can probably move up 1. Already you can see that that's changing the feel of the animation down here in the animation window. We want to give him some time in the air, so let's give him 2 frames maybe. So there we have it. There's 2 frames in the air there. Now it still doesn't feel right because when he lands again, there's no sort of repercussions physically for that. So what we can do is give the head some weight, because the head bobbing up and down is a major clue that there's some real impact going on. If the head's bobbing, then we know that there's some impact happening. So let's take the head here and see how that looks if we lower that down. That looks a bit like, it doesn't look quite right. Let's try the next frame. What we can do is when he launches up, we can also keep the head down so that his body comes up and then his head follows. Let's see if that makes it any better. A little better, or still not the best. Again, this just comes down to tweaking. You'll have to play around with this. So there you go. I've also done some tweaks here to the last frame. I even moved his head down just so you really get that that heaviness, that inertia coming on there. One of the other problems here is that the feet seem to be moving too quickly. If you look down here, it looks like the foot just snaps to the back. We don't really want that. So again, we'll go in and change that, make it a little more subtle. Already that makes things feel better. Again, it's just little tweaks like this to each frame and the motion that are going to bring out the best kind of run cycle. It does take quite a while to get one that looks good. But there you have it. That's a rough run cycle and how to get through it. If you were doing 4 frames, you just take the concept and use it the same way, but instead of being on the extended pose every 4 frames, you're going to do it every 2. It doesn't really give you that much room to play. As you can see in this original animation, the movement is not so detailed. It suits that style, but it's not so expressive. Whereas if you take it up to 8 frames again, you get that fluidity and a bit more energy into the animation. Oh, one last thing we can do is speed it up a wee bit, because at the moment he looks like he's moonwalking. He's going a bit too slow. But if we speed up that animation a wee bit, he looks a bit like jelly. Now we can sort of see that perhaps moving this head down 2 frames was a bit too much. If we shift it up again, then you can see that it sort of fixes things and it looks a bit more natural. Just as a final comment, remember that anything that your character wears, any little props that they have, these can all be used to add to the animation, of course. For example, this guy has a hat. I could totally play on that and use that to add more feeling to each animation. Just like here with the pirate, I used these 2 props, the feather and the hat, just to give a little bit more extra motion, to make the animation a little more lively. They really add a lot to it in the end. They add a lot more character. But there you have it. That's a sideways running cycle. In the future, I might do running cycles going up and down. I'm not really sure. I'm undecided yet. If you liked it, please leave a like on the video. Subscribe to see more videos, because I will be posting them pretty often. And of course, comment if you'd like to see anything personally in any of these videos that I do. I do look at the comments all the time, and this was a suggestion, so I hope it helped. Have a good morning, day, or night, wherever you are. I'm Jimzip. Thanks for watching.
Pixarama.
Pixarama.